back to the Screensavers. I would be Leo Laporte. Now, coming up in this half hour, rearrange your desktop with today's Windows tip, and we're going to continue to help you with your computer questions as we take your live calls. But first, let's talk upgrades, Mr. Norton.
Step one.
One.
Should you even bother to upgrade your computer, right? Everybody thinks, and a friend of mine called me, I need more memory for my computer. Well, why? Because they say it'll run faster. Well, how much memory do you have? 512 megabytes. What are you doing? I write a lot.
No.
You don't need more memory.
No,
yeah.
or worse, he says, I got a Pentium 2 500.
Woo!
Ooh. That's not, you know, there's some things.
And I need to play Unreal Tournament 2003. Which graphics card should I buy?
Some things deserve not to be upgraded.
It's one of them holistic things. You got to look at the whole computer, not just a part of it.
And a lot of times you upgraded, by the time you finished upgrading, all you saved was the case.
And
might have been cheaper to buy a new computer.
And as a matter of fact, these days, the average computer now sells for under $800, right?
Think about that.
Yeah, you can easily rack up quite a few $100s in parts.
But here we're going to show you, if you've got a relatively recent computer and you just want to give a little more oomph, some of the things that'll give you the best bang for your buck, and always best to start with RAM, right?
We mock RAM, but RAM is important. Especially
it's cheap.
OS X or Windows XP are desperate for RAM. 256 megabytes, probably the minimum. 512 megabytes appears to be the sweet spot.
Yeah, I had a 384 megabyte Mac. I put in more to get to 640. I didn't notice a whole lot. Of course, when I run a lot of programs, it's more responsive.
Plus, if you have Windows XP and you log in different users and leave applications in, 256 megabytes will barely be enough to deal with that without getting upset. If you're video editing, if you're audio editing, more RAM can make a huge difference because you're not hitting the hard drive. If you're a gamer, you're not going to see that much benefits.
Today's operating systems are huge. They take 128 megabytes. You're working with giant files, often in these digital files.
Yeah.
More RAM. Now, once you've done that, that's the cheapest one. I mean, you can get 512 megabytes for under $100 now. I mean, it's cheap. Once you've done that, what's the next thing we should do here?
Depends what you're doing. If you're a gamer, right, you're probably thinking, I need a new video card. I did 3D acceleration. Raw. Let's tell you what the 3D card's not going to do. It's not going to make you edit video faster. It's not going to make Word run faster. It's not going to make Excel spreadsheets unless you have a video card that is so old, you're looking at a flickering screen. Yeah. You
said an interesting thing. It's not going to speed up video editing.
No, all it does is basically you're getting a nice little 2D print. Video acceleration takes place. Video, if you're processing video, right, you cut and paste and you knit things together. That's either happening in your processor or in a dedicated video graphics processor. Once in a while, here and there, we've seen video cards that actually had some dedicated features to help accelerate video editing. But for the most part, all that does is paint pixels on your screen.
It's really for 3D rendering, and particularly for 3D rendering in games.
Exactly.
So don't spend a lot of money if you don't play a lot of games. Now, this is a cheap one. This is the one I bought. It's a GeForce 4 Ti 4200. About $100 now.
About $100. Nice entry-level card. You may want to spend a little bit more and get something like ATI's 9500 because it supports DirectX 9. DirectX 9 games are coming out between now and the end of the year. DirectX 9 is going to be a huge amount of DirectX 9 games next year. You don't want to spend all the money on a graphics card and then find out your games aren't going to, you're not going to see the best possible gaming because you didn't spend $30.
And if you've got $400 to blow, go out and get the top of the line, the 9800, which is probably the best, fastest card out there.
But make sure you've got a really fast processor. We're going to talk about processor. If you don't have at least a gigahertz processor, don't buy the low-end card. If you don't have at least a 2 gigahertz processor, don't buy a really fast 3D card because you're wasting your money.
The processor's the choke point, not the video card. A lot of people overlook a hard drive upgrade. It can really speed up your computer to get a much faster, if you have a really old, low, slow hard drive, and it can add a lot of space, but you may not need 120 gigabytes.
Ask yourself, it's funny, 120 gigabytes, we looked up the prices yesterday, selling from $100 to $135.
Well, why not then?
Depending on whether you buy it online or if you're buying it, even without rebates, sometimes you can find them for under $100. It's ridiculous is what it is. It's frustrating. Here's the thing, though. If you have a 20 gigabyte hard drive and you're only using 4 gigabytes of space, unless you can really use the improved performance of getting your 4 gigabytes of files in the main system memory, you're wasting your money to buy a bigger, faster hard drive.
It's for people who are working with digital media files, video, audio, or maybe playing really large games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you probably don't need that
120
much.
megabytes. 120 gigabytes is either just enough space or far too much.
Right. But it's cheap, so go ahead.
Speaking of
this is a good upgrade, but not everybody can do it. This is the processor upgrade.
Right. Depending on your motherboard, you may be able to, double your processor speed by dropping in a new processor, or you may have to upgrade your processor, your motherboard along with your
That's what you and I did when we were going for the ultimate gaming upgrade.
Sure.
You got to put in, because a lot of motherboards just can't handle anything much faster.
If you got a if you're going from a gigahertz to a 1.2 gigahertz processor, processor, you're not going to notice a difference. A
Why bother?
1.5 gigahertz from a 1 gigahertz, you might notice a difference.
Right.
It's really doubling the clock speed is where you start to actually notice a good, healthy difference.
I went from an 833, dual 833s,
Right.
but an 833 to 2.5 gigahertz. I did it with an Asus motherboard. I bought the P4P, which I like. This is the P4B, also a very good motherboard.
Shop around on motherboards. There's a lot of different memory technologies available, and the integrated components. Flip that forward. You can get
the
USB
sound.
2.0, 1394, FireWire sound, surround sound.
Even Ethernet, which really, all of these things are going to save you money because you don't have to buy those extra cards.
Yeah, and you know what? We've seen benchmark performance. Be careful. Do your research before you buy a motherboard, because sometimes with chipsets we see a 10 to 20% difference in the performance of the chip, depending on what motherboard it's loaded
That's why you
into
like
and
that
what memories
M-Force
it's
2 a
using.
lot.
It's
if you're getting
fast.
AMD, go with the M-Force 2. They just improved the speed on that with the new drivers by like another 20%.
Pardon while I drop the keyboard here.
Well, there are some upgrades. These are the upgrades that'll help you speed up your
Yeah.
machine. There's some upgrades that just make you feel better.
Let me explain something. You know what a cheap upgrade is? Upgrade your drivers and make sure the latest patches for your drivers and your
It's
operating
free.
system are loaded. Mouse, keyboard, monitor. You spend all of your time computing every day using these three things. If your keyboard has no spring left in the keys, if your mouse, if you're worried about carpal tunnel syndrome, look around and basically, or if you just have, the crud factor.
Yeah. Yeah, even just dirty can be a
Yeah.
reason to get a new keyboard. I think also a new monitor is great. Get 19 or even 20 inches. You can get a good 19-inch CRT monitor for just a couple of $100. You can get a good LCD monitor for 19 inches, digital, crisp, easy on the eyes, about $700 now. Really is remarkable how cheap these have gotten, and they really do improve your experience. So you can upgrade for speed, or you can upgrade for comfort, but
Or
there
you
are
can
a lot of
upgrade
things
for both.
Or both. Why not? Or just get a new computer and save your money.
Go to thescreensavers.com. We got tons of links to
Yes.
articles all about upgrading your PCs and deciding what you should spend your hard-earned money on.
There's something satisfying about cobbling it all together bit by bit.
Well,
That's how I do it.
You may like that better than
I
buying
like
a new
my
one.
case. I don't